What's going on, everybody? My name is Jordan, also known as Jmonster, and it is wonderful to be back in action. For those of you who don't know, unfortunately a few months back, actually back in November, I got flooded out of my house during some very, very high rainfalls in British Columbia, the province in which I live. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but now we're back in action, and I can finally bring you some of the tournament coverage that I have been promising for several weeks now. We've been working on getting this tournament done since... October, I think around October, December, something like that. We are now into the finals. I'm going to try and stream those live for you, but all the other games have been played. Like I said, we have just the finals to go through. So, this is a match that I got to play in. This is one of the first round matches. We're going to be going through all of those in the next few days. And this match is super long and super sweaty, as tournament games often are. So we're going to go through the army compositions here as best as we are able to, as there's quite a lot of hidden units on the field today. And then we're going to make a massive cut over to the action, and I will explain some of the strategies used by at least my team, the blue team, or purple team in this case, as we've changed our UI, as we go through it. And it should hopefully give you a pretty good idea of what the Silmarillion multiplayer team dynamics, especially in the larger formats like the 3v3s and 4v4s, are going to look like, some of the strategies that you can use to be successful in that arena, and just generally a nice little overview of the direction that we've taken the meta so far. As well, the patch should be out. I won't give you a date, but it will be very, very soon, moving into the new year. It is my priority to get that out, hopefully before my school starts in a couple of days. So yeah, without any further ado, let's move on through it. We are going to start with the red team because they have quite a lot of hidden stuff and it will be very easy to get through. We have the House of Gondolin being played by Wally Wolf here. He's got a couple of the marksmen of Paradise Ithel. He's also got a large number of the herdsmen, if I am not mistaken. Quite a lot of the bladesmen of Paradise Ithel. We've got some Harumatar here, who apparently can deploy stakes. I suppose that's a change that I made quite some time back. Heavy infantry, they're sort of an upgraded version of some of the other heavier swordsmen, or medium swordsmen, that the House of Gondolin is able to field. Think of them as sort of palace guards of a sort. Wally has also brought a couple of the sentries of Hithlum. I think he's got at least 3 of them. One of the things to note about this moving into the next patch is that phalanx formation pike units specifically have had their size increased just a wee bit in order to continue to keep them relevant and to push things a little bit more into that lovely infantry meta that we have spent so much time lovingly crafting for you. Over here we have the Arimo Arantar. This is a beautiful bodyguard unit for the House of Gondolin. The High King's bodyguard himself, but the High King is going to be conspicuously absent here, as I believe he is going to be hanging out in the Sons of Hurin over here. So he's hanging out with his good buddy Hurin. You can see him there with the Dragon Helm of Dorloman and that vicious-looking two-hand axe. I believe there's also a large number of hidden units in here. I think Wally Wolf has some cavalry. It's been a little while since I played this game. But he's definitely got some hidden archers, phalanx units, a whole lot of Edine, as it seems to be a very popular strategy amongst many players, is to go quite heavy into the Edine. Yeah, a lot of them are going to be hiding in this sort of, not central, but sort of off-center forested area here. Moving on now to the second red team player, we have the House of Halath being commanded by Meven from the Durance folk clan. Here we've got some Warda of Ethel Brandir, which are one of the few General's Bodyguard picks that you're able to bring as the House of Halath. The other one, not quite a General's Bodyguard, but for all intents and purposes people tend to use them as that, is the Skaldmare of Halath. They have some particularly deadly throwing axes that are very, very nice for dealing with elephant-classed units, such as many of the units that the Angband armies will like to include. And they're going to be facing off against Angband today, so that's a really nice pick from them. There are Warda using their new upgrade model that was given to us by the, I think it's the, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't quite remember their name. Commander Soul is one of the team leads for this project. Bill Baraka Reaper, they're all contributors to Silmarillion in some way or another. That actually comes from their mod. I'll figure it out and I'll put it down in the description for you. Anyway, moving on, we've got some Swear to Brother here of Thargelion. One of the cool things to note about the Paladin is that they have a lot of weapon-based bonuses. So their axe units have increased base damage, which in turn translates into much, much higher damage, usually about 2 to 3 points of extra damage. The Swear to Brother units and all other sword-based units as well, they have the Relentless trait, so they cannot be stunned, staggered, etc., which does effectively increase their damage in a different way. But it does make them a very, very solid mainline unit. They can also inspire nearby units, so if you have a block of Swear to Brother, they can be extremely potent and very difficult to get rid of. Over here we've got some Huskarlar of Thargelion. They're going to be a medium infantry, and they're also axe throwers, and they've got a very nasty charge. And of course, being an axe unit, they have some serious chaff grinding potential. There's a whole bunch more things hidden in here. I believe there's a lot of Paladin cavalry on the field today. I think we're looking at like 3 units of the Mardrot, which is like a spear cavalry javelin throwing hybrid cav unit. We've also got another hybrid in the form of the oh god, I should know this one. The Vault Rider Dragoons, and there's at least 2 of them on the field, and I think we've got some chariots hiding in there as well. More Huskarlar over here, so we've got at least 2 Huskarlar, another unit of Swear to Brother, again, really good at slogging it out in melee. They're not super, super expensive either, especially in the new patches. We will be turning down the price of some of the mid-tier units so that you are able to chevron them, have those extra customization options that will add some creativity to your builds overall. So factions like the Paladin, for example, who are quite mid-tier based, they are going to get a lot of benefit out of this. So moving on now from the Paladin, we have the Easterlings being played by Tundra's Fox. We've got a couple of Salamandrian Guard here, a really nice all-around unit. You are able to give them an armor upgrade. They're quite heavy cavalry. I believe you can bump them up to about 11 or so armor, which essentially makes them cataphracts. They're quite quick. Their armor piercing in close quarters with their special weapon does make them a little bit more expensive in a couple of different ways. And they've also got some very handy projectiles that will affect morale. You're going to see that throughout the game. So a nice all-around unit. They are quite low in number and very expensive to boot. Over here we have the Sons of Ulfang, one of the general bodyguard picks for the Easterlings, who are divided, for those of you who are new, into a couple different sub-factions, those being the Tribes of Boar and the Tribes of Ulfang. This particular unit is Ulfang dedicated. Unlike the previous patch, they can now give themselves an armor upgrade. They're the only Ulfang unit that's really able to do so. And those nasty, God, I'm forgetting the name of it. Oh, it's not a scythe, it's a Falks. That's it. These Falkses here are armor piercing, very, very deadly, especially off the charge. The Sons of Ulfang are absolutely terrifying. But once they're into close quarters, they're a little bit more vulnerable. The Ambarone Honor Guard are a little bit different. They are armed with axes. They have a decent charge value, no armor piercing, so they don't quite overtake the Sons of Ulfang in their designated role, but they are much, much tankier with that heavy armor and those heavy shields. They can also give themselves an armor upgrade. So we'll see if we can get a little bit closer to them and see something like the ornate designs and stuff on the tops of the helmets. The shields are also really, really cool. And then we've got the General in here. So this is going to be the custom General for the Easterlings here. That's the one that you're going to want to look for. Turnus Fox also bringing some Warband of Lothland. Nice little mid-tier spear units. Massive shield bonus. Very, very lightly armored, however, and they do have a good melee defense. So they're fabulous at slogging it out, at least from the front. Pretty standard loadout here for the rest of the Easterling army. We've got the Clan Guard of Lothland. You can get close there, you can see this sort of ornate detailing on their helmets. Clan Guard of Lothland, which is a scimitar unit, high melee defense, pretty good armor, and a decent shield value as well. And they're going to be protecting the Halberdiers, who are some of the finest Halberdier regiments to be found anywhere in Silmarillion. We have another couple of those units over there, and I suspect there's maybe a little bit of Heidi terrain here, which is going to be concealing another combination of those 2 units. Out in front, one of the things to note about the Easterlings is that, for the most part, they have basically no foot archers. This legendary company here is their only foot archer. These are the Fangs of the Faithless. Now, very sticky. They have poison arrows. There are some differences between them and the other Falx units that they're sort of the utility version of. But the big thing to note is that they don't have the Falx movement speed, and they don't have the insane charge values that 99.9% of other Falx units are going to enjoy. Out in front, there's going to be a unit of Warband of Lothlan. We're going to be defending the Serpents there. Not the Serpents, the Fangs of the Faithless. And that's pretty well it, at least for what we can see of the red team so far. So without any further ado here, let's move on to the, I'm going to start calling them the purple team. Purple team is going to be composed of the Blessed Realm of Valinor, one of the new factions that will be coming to you in the War of Wrath patch. They're going to be played today by Mech Buzzard. He's got some shoal runners here of Alqualande. He's got several units of, I think he's got at least 2, possibly a third hanging around here somewhere. He's also got some sentries of Alqualande. They're going to be out front. So, the thing to note about the Blessed Realm of Valinor is that they are divided in quite neatly into 3 different sub-factions. Actually, no, 4 different sub-factions. Maiar, Vanyar, Noldor, and Teleri. The Teleri make up sort of the lighter auxiliary troops, such as the sentries of Alqualande, the shoal runners, and the majority of the skirmish and light infantry corps. So we have some Swan Guard here of Alqualande. Surprise, surprise, they're spearmen. In behind, we got some mariners of Alqualande, and they are a sword harassment javelin hybrid unit. In behind them, we have the shoal runners of Alqualande, a little bit less range than a lot of the other sling units in the game. But what they lack in range, they make up for in sheer brute firepower. Now, most slings are armor-piercing. These guys are not. However, their sling bolts will split into multiple. So you've got a higher base damage of 2 and multiple slingshots from each one of these units. So easily, they are doing the DPS of a unit that is 3 times their size, and if left unchecked, they can absolutely devastate units of light and medium infantry, especially a lot of the unshielded units on the Easterling side. So that is something that the Easterlings are going to want to pay very, very keen attention to. We've got 2 of those units on the field today. I've also got a catapult here, which is going to be crewed by the Hearthguard of Tirion. These are some of the Noldoran units, and they comprise the heavy infantry units within the Valinor sub-faction. So the Teleri are light, the Noldor are heavy, and we'll move on, and we're going to see a little bit more of the diversity within the Valinor comp. So over here we've got some heavy cavalry. These are the Knights of Tirion, and it's important to note that the Noldor and Vanyar and Maiar units all have extra HP. So that's one of the sort of distinguishing features of Valinor, is that they have this abundance of multiple HP units, although they are very expensive and quite small to boot. More Mariners over here, yet more of the Swan Guard, and we have our first Vanyaran unit. This one's a little bit different than a lot of the other Vanyar, in the sense that they're more heavily armored. Usually the Vanyar comprise the medium infantry corps, and they are also some light cavalry as well. But this unit is the exception. These are the kinsmen of Ingwe, the family members and personal retainers of the King of the Elves himself. Over here you can see in the officer position, we've got Eonwe, the Herald of the Valar. Nice little custom model here and his own little custom spear. And like all Maiar, I don't know if you can see it terribly well, but he does have golden eyes. Just one of the little details that we're using to sort of differentiate these units and make Valinor a little bit special. So he's got those gleaming golden eyes, and the Vanyar, of course, have their blonde hair. You can see trailing out the back of their helmets. And I think that's it for his visible units at the moment anyway. And so, nope, actually we missed a few. So we've got some Vanyaran spearmen here, the Plaza Guardians of Valimar. They are a little bit more numerous than the Noldor Remnant, which of course makes sense, but still not very numerous, as they are the Vanyar, the smallest kindred of the elves. They are medium armored two-handed spearmen, which for all intents and purposes are halberds, but with the benefits of being two-handed spears. They are extremely potent, very popular in a lot of Valinor compositions. They're going to be defended here with a little bit of the light infantry, who is going to prevent some of those nasty missiles that are inevitably going to come their way. I believe he's got, looks like 2 here forming that sort of center phalanx, and that is very, very deadly indeed. Not something that you want to take lightly. Moving on now from the Valinor player, we're going to pop on over to the middle. and that is going to be the hidden city of Gondolin. Gondolin has lots of changes coming to them in this patch, mostly in the form of a legendary company, which I will hopefully have ready and available for you guys in the next patch. And they're also getting some cap changes. Now, one of those cap changes, of course, is to the Knights of the Golden Flower. You think you were previously only able to bring 2, but now you can bring 3. And there's the champions of the fountain as well. Will be a little bit more numerous in the field just to open up more compositions as Gondolin. But these are Lancers, very, very deadly. Not something that you want to play with, and they're in fact the only cavalry unit available to Gondolin. Over here we've got some Scouts of the Tree laying down their stakes. The purple team here are really digging in their heels. Another unit of Scouts of the Tree, and some Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch. They will have an armor upgrade coming into this patch, which makes them a little bit more survivable. They've also had their cap increased from 2 to 3, so you can bring a little bit more of them. It does open up some more skirmish-heavy comps from Gondolin. Yeah, Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch, probably one of my favorite units in the Gondolin roster. They're very tanky when you give them the armor upgrade. They've got pretty decent damage, and with an attack upgrade as well, you can basically use them as a second line of heavy infantry reserves once they have expended their considerable ammunition pools. From the Tale of the Fall of Gondolin, these units were on the walls, and they basically fired from dawn till dusk. So we've represented that with a little bit of extra ammunition. So they've got 16 rather instead of 14 ammo, which is standard for high tier archers. More Scouts of the Tree over here, popping down their stakes, looking like friggin' Reptile from Mortal Kombat. Love that model. Got some Guardsmen of the Harp here, just sort of chaff infantry. One of the more numerous houses. They are a mid-tier unit. Gondolin only has a few mid-tier units, about 3 or so, I believe, and they sort of help fill out the rest of your composition, which is going to heavily rely on specialist units like what we've seen so far, the cavalry, the archers, and so forth. Guardsmen of the Harp, nice little meat shield, beautiful little model there done by Skyly. And then we've got heavy, heavy infantry corps, super heavy in fact. The Armorers of the Hammer, they now have an extra armor upgrade, so you can upgrade them twice, which I think takes them to 14 or so armor, 14 or 15 armor, which is probably one of the highest armor values in the game. I think the only thing that's going to really rival that is going to be maybe some of the Feanor bodyguards, and also the dwarves once they arrive. So 3 units of them, but those maces, they're very nasty. They also cause fear, and being the impetuous warmongers that they are, we've represented that with an additional charge bonus. So they do a lot of things, but they are very expensive, and of course they are not very numerous, only 100 or so men per unit. So they are very, very vulnerable to, say, high damage hunter javelins, which can chew out these units and thin out their numbers quite nicely. Got some more archers over here in the form of Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch, no 2 units of. And I think there's some sneaky units that are hidden in here somewhere, but we'll no doubt see them throughout the course of the match. And now we're going to move on to my army. A little bit of strange bedfellows here with Valinor and Gondolin teaming up with Angband, who is essentially their arch nemesis. But it's fine, no question, it's a tournament, we just do these kinds of things for fun. But yeah, I brought some Tormentors of the Iron Crown here. I think I've got 2 full units of them, and then a detachment hanging out somewhere in the line. I've got a ton of the Ironshot Halberdiers here with their armor upgrades. Very, very nasty indeed. It's a really scary front line of armor piercing. I've also got my Spear Guard of the Iron Crown, who are going to have their armor upgrades today. That is going to make them quite difficult to break down indeed. And back here I've got some more Spear Guard. I've got Ironshot Ravagers as well. They're a really nice all-round unit, so of course they're armor piercing since they're a 2-handed axe. They have a nasty charge, there's quite a lot of them. They're reasonably heavy armored, clocking in at about 9 or so armor, so they don't have to worry about missiles quite as much as many of the other units, such as, say, the Scar High Blood Drinkers. And they're also pretty decent anti-cavalry deterrent. They're not super expensive, so you can throw them at a unit of high-tier cavalry, and if they're foolish enough to take a charge from the front, you will, of course, lose at least half your unit of Ravagers, but you will also kill that unit of cavalry, and that's important. More of the Ravagers here. One thing to note about a lot of these Ironshot units is they don't have the greatest response to morale shocks, and of course, being orcs, their morale is, on average, quite a bit lower than the elves. And so they're quite easy to scatter once things go wrong. So if your general dies, or if your general dies and your units get fatigued, that's when Angband really starts to run out of steam, figuratively and literally, as those units get more and more tired. Why am I telling you all of this? Well, it's important because the Reavers of Angband are a little bit different. They don't have those. They don't have the morale response penalty, and they are one of the only Angband units to get bonuses in the woods. So the Reavers of Angband basically are a nice little all-round unit. I like to use them as reserves, which is why I have them parked behind here. So if my front line started to crumble for whatever reason, and my Iron Crown units were beginning to get stranded, I could always throw in my Reavers of Angband and yeah, continue the fight there and continue the grind. Yeah, that's basically all you need to know about them for now. I've also brought some Wolf Riders. I think I've got 2 units of Wolf Riders, or maybe just 1. I feared we would need a little bit of extra cavalry just because it's Haleth and the Easterlings, and potentially Gondolin has some cavalry as well. They do have some mounted anti-monster deterrents, which would be quite logical to bring against Angband. And in addition to, I've also brought 2 units of the Troll Guard. So I've tried to balance out numbers with some line breaking ability, and the Troll Guard are actually quite nice for that. I don't know if it's in the current patch, but the Troll Guard also have an armor upgrade, which makes them extra scary. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Bulldogs of Angband. These are Fallen Maiar, forced to inhabit the monster shape of chieftains, and they are probably the default bodyguard for Angband. Multiple HP, very, very scary in melee. You can give them an armor upgrade, I think possibly 2, and it makes them just that much more formidable. So that's going to do for my army comp. We're going to make a big old cut here because there's a lot of maneuvering. Oh, looks like I forgot a little bit. We've also got some Wretches, some Reavers, and a couple units of Thralls hiding out in the tree here. Just as a nasty little surprise for anybody who gets too close. But yeah, that's going to do. Let's make that cut, and then I'll see you guys in just a few minutes. So one of the early engagements here is going to be in our favor. Muffins has done a little bit of skirmishing with the Paladin, who were quite bold in coming forward through the central pass, but now he is going to punish them very heavily with these knights here of the Golden Flower. He's going to charge right into the backs of these medium axemen, and it's going to hurt. However, damage somewhat mitigated by the fact that these Huskarlar kept themselves moving, and that's a fun little advanced tip for you guys. If you are facing down the barrel of a nasty charge, and you want to minimize your damage, well, just keep swimming, as Dory would say. And yeah, it's going to change your casualties from half your unit to a small handful here. Fortunately, it looks like they lost maybe some of their officers, but it's fine. No use crying over spilt or dismembered Warda. So Huskarlar took a little bit of damage there, about 10 or so models I think fell from that unit. But this skirmishing is going to continue on for quite some time. Now, that is going to give me an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about what our strategy is here before we move on and make another cut. So, the Valinor army, as you probably noticed, is very largely skirmish-based. They do have some nasty bite in melee, but there's not quite enough of them to cover the ground necessarily. The Easterlings are very, very formidable foes. Indeed, a lot of armor, a lot of pole arms. They can bring good numbers and leverage some really, really nasty charges with their Falx units, and there's also a decent amount of fear in the roster. The Suns plus the Despoilers of Dor Caranthir are some of their fear units, plus the arrows from the Salamanders. So a lot of these Teleri units here would not appreciate that kind of pressure, and they would almost certainly break. So Buzzard's strategy here is going to be to delay any sort of direct action against the Easterlings in terms of an infantry fight for as long as he can, and he really just wants to leverage his skirmish power because that's where he's strongest, and that's certainly where the Easterlings are weakest. As I mentioned, they really only have the Fangs of the Faithless there. Over in the center, Muffins trying to take point here with some of these marksmen of the Heavenly Arch, but this stalemate is going to continue for quite some time. As it is a tournament, there is money on the line, $500 in fact, and nobody really wants to make the first move here, aside of course from Meven, who's looking to get in there, maybe toss some Some axes into the Scouts of the Tree. They are currently reloading. The Scouts of the Tree, I think, are going to retreat here, and now the Knights of the Golden Flower are going to charge forth. That might be enough. Yeah, I don't think they're going to have the opportunity to throw there. Now they're going to be easy prey. And this should let us see the difference between, remaining stationary during a charge and actually managing to stay ahead of your attackers there. So they just dropped from like 90 or so down to 62. With 30 models there dying in fairly rapid succession. Now some of the hidden units being brought forth, dismounted Mardrot, are a dismounted version of the spear jab hybrid cavalry that we spoke about a little bit earlier. And they are armed with harassment javelins. So against, say, the Knights of the Golden Flower or against the Scouts of the Tree, both of these units in tandem could put a fair amount of ranged pressure onto some of these lighter troops like the Scouts. Looks like Muffins also has some extra units here nearby, some Spearmen of the Swallow. Another one of the mid-tier units, quite versatile hybrid. It's got spears and some limited bow ammunition, which makes them nice for soaking up damage, especially since they have a shield. Acting as an anti-cavalry deterrent, and just a little bit of extra skirmish power so that you don't feel obliged to always bring Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch and really double down on that skirmish. Huskar of Thargelion, perhaps flying a little bit too close to the sun here, in pushing into this sort of unknown territory when there's just so much stuff here, but I think they probably want to try and get a little bit of value off, perhaps, on the Marksman of the Heavenly Arch. Muffins is going to see it, and he is going to draw himself back. Let's see if they get the toss. They might. And unfortunately, they don't. Muffins is going to see it in time. He's going to pull out range. They're going to go through ammunition, but it's not going to do anything. Meanwhile, I've moved my halberds up over here, and it's just sort of a prolonged stalemate. Got some herdsmen and some herdsmen here. Of course, a lot of the Edine coming out of the woodwork as they are able to hide in many of the manifold copses of trees and forest terrain. And Fingolfin is just kind of sitting here. We're just staring at each other. It's the Siege of Angband all over again. And we're going to continue to do that for quite some time now. So, this little skirmish in the center is going to continue. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. I'm going to go ahead and make a cut here, and I'll see you in just a few moments. So it looks like Muffins means business here. He's going to go forward with one of his Guardsmen of the Harp. Again, they're a little bit of a throwaway unit. This is the kind of stuff you want to be able to use them for. They're going to charge into battle against the Huskar, arrow fire, and other things hitting the dismounted Mardrot in the front. They will take some casualties, but they are reasonably well armored with that medium mail. And of course they have some shields as well. However, the Scouts of the Tree, they're going to have something to say about this, and once they get in there with those armor-piercing sling bullets, they're going to be able to do quite a lot to the dismounted Mardrot. And the Huskar Thargelion are just simply being overwhelmed by the numbers of guardsmen that have been brought to bear here. And that is, of course, going to oblige Meven to bring forth some of his other units. And it looks like that's going to take the form of the Swear Brother. Now, I'm not quite sure that looks like 123. I bet some of them have been, like, stuck behind this. Yeah, there they are. There's the rest of the unit, but they're going to immediately come under fire from the Scouts of the Tree, who are in a really nice little vantage point. So, if we take a look at the percentages here, it's about 1 to 2%, but that's going to continue to rise in favor of the purple team because of that skirmish superiority. Again, this was part of the strategy here. Muffins is going to hold down the center. He's going to be able to do some skirmish, but he's also got the heavy infantry corps. He's a very versatile player, and his army composition is going to reflect those particular talents of his. And then Valinor is going to be all about that extra skirmish power, and then of course there's Angband, who has the infantry and the monsters and the line-breaking power. Nasty frontal charge here by the Knights of the Golden Flower. They're doing some serious damage to this Huskar, and they want to get a piece of this second unit here. Now there's some arrow fire coming in. It is going to hit some of these units from behind, but they do have 10 armor, so they're going to be able to shrug off that arrow fire relatively easily. However, the Huskar here is going to activate that deadly charge bonus in tandem with the bonuses that Halleth get to their axe units. They're actually going to cut down a few of those knights. They're going to be forced to retreat in short order. However, Scouts of the Tree here definitely have something to say about that. The Huskar are going to toss their axes at the Guardsmen of the Harp, but the Scouts of the Tree on Overwatch, I think they just ran out of ammunition. Yep, they've got maces though. They've got armor piercing in close quarter. They're quite nice. But that is going to leave the Huskarlar now free to basically do whatever they want. They're going to toss into these guardsmen here who are overwhelming the Mardrot, but that flanking fire there is going to turn that around very quickly indeed. Not a lot of deaths there. It is a little bit disrupting. These guys do have medium armor and decent shields, so throwing axes aren't going to do a whole lot to them. Few model deaths there. Now the scouts in the tree, they have got something to say about this, so they're going to charge into battle here. Against the Huskarlar, unfortunately they're going to get hung up, and now the Huskarlar are going to have an opportunity to empty some of that ammunition there into the scouts in the tree. Muffins is going to see it. He's going to power through. Oh, you can see one of those guys getting swept right off his feet there. They're trying quite hard to push their way in. Now they're going to be able to engage those Huskarlar in close combat. It's kind of hard to say. They did manage to get the Huskarlar at a little bit of a disadvantage here. A lot of these units had turned themselves around, so they lose the most of their defensive bonuses from the front. And the Scouts of the Tree are going to score a fairly early victory here, and I think they'll be able to carry that through weight of numbers. That being said, you can see the balance here beginning to shift a little bit. Huskarlar do a lot of damage, and you can watch the Scouts out of the tree here take some fairly steady attrition from these axe-wielding forest-dwelling maniacs. Scouts of the Tree slowly beginning to fall. Guardsmen of the Harp doing what they do best, overwhelming the Mardrot. And meanwhile, over here, absolutely nothing is happening. Nothing of note. Don't worry about it. Not important. However, Easterlings, I believe, have begun to move forward potentially through the forested area, or they will do that a little bit later on, but it's still a bit of a staring contest. So now that we know what's going on in the center there, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward again. Ooh, looks like some Valinor cavalry just came to the rescue here. Pushed their way in, but now these things have come forth with the Warband of Lothland, which, to be honest, they probably should have done a little bit earlier. Rigswear have shown up. Light infantry, they've got a small clutch of javelins. Not armor piercing, not harassment, not anything special. But it does decent damage with 8 or so damage. They are sword units, they are relentless, and the big and notable thing about the Rigswear is that they are unbreakable. So they've got a lot of potential uses. Really nice ambush troops, really high charge, like 13 charge, which is nearly unheard of. And those javelins there are actually going to do a decent amount of damage to the Scouts of the Tree. We're currently overwhelming the Huskarlar. And it looks like the Mardrot there have expired. Guardsmen of the Harp, a little bit winded from that struggle, but they're going to rejoin their brothers here in the center. They're going to try and take on this Warband of Lothland unit. They're going to get a nice charge there before the spears are able to form up. Casualties will mount there for them. Huskarlar holding it down with the Scouts of the Tree. The Guardsmen of the Harp kind of fighting a little bit of a losing battle here. Rigswear now joining the fray. Some of the dismounted Mardrot looks like they managed to escape. There's some bow fire coming in, and it's just a bit of a mess here in the center. But Haleth is definitely coming off a little bit worse for wear in this case. It's interesting to see the Haleth player kind of try and play this trade game when they don't have the skirmish superiority. Maybe it ends up working out, maybe they drain the ammunition, but we'll see a little bit further down the line. I'm going to go ahead and make the cut here, and I'll see you in just a few minutes. So this here is pretty significant. The Gondolin troops were making quite nice headway. You can see a lot of the Warband here have suffered. We've got another unit of Scouts of the Tree here have been brought forward. But the Haladin units are actually managing to carry this fight. Guardsmen of the Harp getting routed off there. Scouts of the Tree down to 38, having lost about 100 or so units out of that, 100 or so models rather, out of that unit. Sweater Brother are moving forward to reinforce with the Scouts of the Tree. You're going to be picking on them very mightily. We've got some Marines of Vinyamar here. A little bit of reinforcement sent to the center by the House of Fingolfin. Not a bad pick at all. Marines don't quite have the range of the Scouts of the Tree, but they do have higher damage, and they have about 100 or so range. So all they got to do is move a little bit farther forward here, and they can go toe-to-toe with the Scouts of the Tree relatively comfortably, assuming that they can make the approach without getting absolutely stomped by a lot of missile units. Spearmen of the Swallow here have been brought forth as well. And it looks like they're picking on the Marines of Vinyamar. They're not really going to do a lot of damage to them. They are sort of a medium infantry. They've got a decent shield value as well. Sweater Brother here have taken a decent amount of damage, almost about 10 or so models. And this is largely becoming sort of a battle of attrition, death by 1,000 cuts for the red team here. Now, they are going to win this fight finally they're going to pull out a little bit of a victory, but at what cost? Oh, Christ, look at that. Oh, that's nasty. Some friendly fire here. You can just hear the Halo voice announcer in the back of your head. That betrayal! As they fry about a dozen or so of the scouts of the tree. Oh, yeah. Some of the retreating units are going to take it in the face there as well. Rigsware retreating. The Warband of Lothland definitely took some pretty hefty losses there. The Rigsware not exactly having a great time either, losing a little bit over half the unit, and it's just gross. So for the cost of a couple Gondolin infantry and some ammunition, managed to do a decent amount of damage to the Paladin. So the purple team currently about 4% in the lead, and we'll see if that's something that they're able to change moving into the mid-game. Over here, House of Engulfin, again, they've just been chilling here. This is going to be the battlefield a little bit later on. Eventually we'll be going to them, and things are going to kick off in a pretty significant way. Just waiting for the Easterlings to make their advance. They will be doing so eventually, but until that time comes, you guessed it, it's time to make another cut. So I'll see you in just a few moments. And so we've got another forward feint here from the Paladin as they bring forth more of their skirmishers, Rigsware, and that kind of thing. And they're going to open up onto the Spearmen of the Swallow as they charge their way in there, trying to catch and silence the dismounted Mardrot. It's a nice little catch, and they are actually going to manage to get into the honeypot there. But I think the Mardrot will, for the most part, be able to escape. That being said, the Spirit of the Swallow here are really just a distraction. Rigsware going to be easy prey. There's some Knights of the Flower in close attendance, and they could be used for something fairly decisive, especially against these Rigsware. And I know we still have those Vinyamar units, so we might see them pop out here. And there is also the Warband of Lothland, or at least what remains of them. Nice little cheeky charge going into the Rigsware there. Muffins is going to take that. He is going to pull out just as the Marines of Vinyamar begin to make themselves visible and wind up for a devastating attack to the rear. And they are going to be able to toss. See if they get anybody. Oh, they do. They catch a couple. Oh, actually about 5 or so stragglers there, so a decent shot for them for sure. Warband of Lothland now in play. The Rigsware, however, the damage is really done here. So it's a nice little trade because Gondolin is able to keep up the pressure this way, whereas previously the Spearmen here would simply just be easily overwhelmed. It is starting to turn in their favor against them a little bit, but that's just because the Rigsware are just nice at trading into especially lower tier spear units. Spearmen of the Swallow not having the greatest time and about to get flanked there, so they are going to pull back. Let's see. Guardsmen of the Harp are definitely going to have something to say about that. Spearmen of the Swallow will be brought forward. Knights of the Golden Flower in close attendance in case anybody wants to pursue, and a nice cheeky charge there. Oh, they're going to get into the warbands before they're able to properly form up, and that is gonna hurt. About half or so of the unit died there, and they're actually going to break. At the same time, the Guardsmen of the Harp are going to push in, and the Rigsware are going to hold the line, but there's not quite enough of them. The Guardsmen do manage to catch a little bit of disadvantage there before they can quickly pull out their melee weapons. So they're going to take casualties very, very quickly indeed, and this actually opens things up a little bit. For those Knights of the Golden Flower, if they wanted to do some little cheeky charging, they could potentially sally forth into the Marines of Vinyamar. Naturally, it is a little bit of a risk, because of course there are more Paladin units in close attendance, and who knows what else. But if you look at the percentages here, yeah, 16-13. So far, Purple Team coming out on top in this little center skirmish, and that's really largely down to just how many skirmish units they have. Hasn't really been a ton of support forthcoming. The Marines of Vinyamar, obviously a really nice thing for Wally Wolf to bring over. And in the mid-range department, they've certainly got the advantage. But when it comes to the long-range skirmishing with the Scouts of the Tree and the Marksmen of the Heavily Arch, Muffins is much better suited to sit back in terms of his composition than the other units are. And it really kind of shows here. There's a lot of dead arboreal Vikings, lying face down in a puddle of their own blood, as a testament to the superiority of the skirmish power of these elves here. Scouts of the Tree here now winding up. Let's see what they're going to do. Oh yeah, they're going to go after those Marines of Vinyamar for sure. Light-ish casualties Marines again do have a decent enough shield value. It will be mitigated by armor piercing on those sling bullets, but yeah, the amount of damage they're able to do is just not super devastating. You know, 1 or 2 casualties here and there. Meanwhile, if we look over here, there's a little bit of skirmishing going on between the Fangs of the Faithless. Some of them got picked off by the formidable sentries of Alcolande, but they did, of course, suffer some casualties in return, about 14 or so models out of that unit. And one thing I noticed is there's actually a second unit of the Knights of the Golden Flower hanging out here. So a decent amount of cavalry on our side for sure. But all quiet on the eastern and western fronts for the time being, and we're going to make one final cut here before we get to the action. So I'll see you guys in just a few moments. And now we're starting to see a little bit of action here over on the Valinor side. You got the Shoal Runners here who have moved into the forest. Salamandrine Guard moving in to support some of the light cavalry from the Easterlings that was hiding out there. When it comes to a toe-to-toe fight, the Rowatani Nomads are not going to be much of a match for the Valinor cavalry. That being said, Knights of Tyrion moving forward. Oh, some Warband of Lothland there as well. Nice. Nicely well-laid ambush. Blind Hunter's Fox. Knights of Tyrion are going to see it in time. They're going to be able to pull out. The Shoal Runners moving forward. They will be taking some losses as they advance. They definitely want to get out of there, if at all they can. Two of these units kind of stacked up on top of each other doing the Cantabrian Circle is going to make it a little bit easier to hit, but they will ultimately do a decent amount of damage to the Shoal Runners there, cutting down about 20% or so of the unit in a fairly short order. Now they're going to manage to get themselves into that Cantabrian Circle and be able to spar here a little bit. Over on my side, things are happening as well. I noticed there was a hidden unit here of the Herdsmen. Just a second, go ahead and turn that down just a wee bit so you can hear me a little bit better and I don't have to shout. Herdsmen Dorloman sparring with my rears of Anfauglith, who are actually not doing as well as you'd expect them to, facing down the shield wall here from the House of Hador. Salamandrine Guard over here, and obviously I don't want them to charge into my Reavers, of course. I do have some hidden units here, so if I'm able to, get a few pot shots off perhaps on the Salamandrine Guard, and they're going to go in for that cheeky charge. And I think we're going to pull out there. No, we're actually going to go for a nice little counter charge here. So even if I lose some of my Reavers of Anfauglith, if I can take down some of the Salamandrine Guard, especially if I can shoot them, perhaps while they're running away, for example, then it does end up kind of working out in my favor. Yeah, a good shot there into the rear of the Salamanders, going to be able to take down a few of them, maybe 1 or 2 as they retreat, but still is the Salamandrine Guard. They are quite low on model count, and every model does count. First Member Dorloman going to be left with the victory for now. Reavers of Anfauglith are going to pull back, and I'm going to try and reform them for another charge, as they are an action where they do have a decent enough charge. If you can cycle charge your infantry units, you can get a hell of a lot more value out of them, rather than just having it be a one and done. So another charge here from the Reavers. Let's see if it amounts to anything. We'll catch these birds in here before they're able to form up. Do a decent amount there, probably 7 or 8 models. Yeah, they're going to quickly lose ground, but once they manage to form their shield wall and get back into position, I'm going to pull back my rears of Anfauglith, and we'll be doing this for a little while now. Meanwhile, over here on the Valinor side, it looks like things have kind of settled down. Shoal Runners, I think, have limped back to their lines. The Knights of Tyrion are still over there, and the Easterlings are still in command of this patch of wood. Looking at the percentages here, the Purple Team has managed to claw back a little bit. At one point, I think it was like more than 10%, but now it's just going to be about 8% or so. That's largely due to the complete nightmare shit show that is this center area here. There's a little bit more engagements from both sides, but as you can see, the Halidin kind of got the worst of it. I think most of the Rigswear and a lot of the Halidin skirmishing corps was lost here. And Gondolin obviously took a little bit of losses. I think most of their scouts now have ammunition, and these ones are critically low. But for the most part, this is a pretty handy little victory there for Gondolin. Cost them some guards of the Harp, a couple units of Spearmen of the Swallow, and a decent amount of ammunition. But in exchange, they killed hundreds upon hundreds of the Fantasy Forest Vikings, and that's kind of working out nice for them. So, Popping back over here. Reavers of Unfoulglith, not doing so great, but we have managed to whittle down these Swordsmen here. This is mostly an attempt on my part, because as you can see, we're at 40,000 frames, to just make something happen in the game. Try and draw them forward, try and get, you know, a little bit of a reaction out of the other team, and see if we can, you know, force something to happen. Reavers of Unfoulglith, they're going to pull out there. They are going to stop moving, and they're going to catch their breath, as it were. They've definitely taken a little bit of a beating here, fighting with these swordsmen, but we have managed to whittle down the units, so that's always nice. But yeah, these guys are just going to kind of hang out for a little bit, and we've got some more movement over on the easterling side of things. They are now coming through those woods in force. We've got 2 units of the Warband of Lothland, backed up by some Croatoani nomads, and I think there's a unit of salamanders close attendance somewhere. But ultimately, this is a nice little skirmish force. Something they can use to try and bully this side of the Valinor army. Shoulder Runners, of course, will do very well, and the Knights of Tyrion can bully the Croatoani, but of course, with the Warband in close proximity, there's not really much they can do that's aggressive. These units from the front stand up to the missiles from the shoulders really well, and of course, they can withstand a charge from the Knights of Tyrion, who are much more expensive and handily rebuff them. Over here, not much happening. People still have ammunition. There's some more salamander movement over on this side, and it looks like the red team is potentially setting up for a little bit of a rush here. What do we got over in the back? It looks like we have some salamanders from Tundra's Fox who managed to get in behind our lines. I don't really have cavalry or any sort of numbers to be able to chase them. Not without exposing some important units. Like, I could get my Ironshot Ravagers and try and bully them a little bit. Maybe use them with the Troll Guard of Gothmog. Those 2 units in tandem would be pretty scary for the Salamanders. Whereas the Ravagers alone may struggle. Sorry about that, it's a little bit late here. But, yeah, then I'm chasing cavalry, and there's really nothing I can do to force Tundra's Fox to engage with me. So he's got his Salamanders hidden in the back over here. And for the time being, that is going to be the state of affairs. Now, I think, yeah, this is very sneaky. So Muffins kind of went on a little bit of a commando mission here, potentially trying to assassinate some of the generals, or to at least like suss things out. There's a little bit of reconnaissance here. You can see that he's brought some of the Mardrot out of hiding. Salamandrian Guard are, of course, pursuing them across the field. But worth noting, Fingolfin General is over here. So if he can get a rear charge, like this way here, into the rear of that general, he will kill it almost instantly. And then Fingolfin is going to be down a general, and that's just a huge advantage for us moving into the later stages of the game. So let's see if this little commando raid actually amounts to anything. Now, I think Wally's going to see it, and indeed he will. He's going to get a nice little charge there. Now, it's going to kill off that whole unit. But it will cost the Sons of Húrin a few models there. I think I saw, 3 or 4 of them die potentially, but I could be mistaken. Definitely worth a shot, though. If he could take out that general, that would have been a huge deal. So we have some more of the Marines of Venumar over there. Now we've managed to scout out a lot of the area, so that's pretty important for us moving into the next stage of this game. And I think, yeah, Meven really just doesn't want to give up this center area. I think at this point, it might be throwing good money after bad, but he's invested so much that he is going to try and take it. Guardsmen of the Heart being preyed upon by a 1-2 punch here. Warda of Breathhill with their armor-piercing spears, and the Marines of Venumar scything through the Guardsmen. And yeah, it's going to be ugly. This might be the first defeat that Gondolin kind of suffers in the center here, where the trade isn't heavily skewed in their favor. Now, I think there's some marksmen nearby. They could, pew-pew the Marines of Venumar, something like that. Muffins is going to see the dire situation and begin to pull back. He's also bringing forward some of the scouts of the tree. And yeah, the fight for the center continues. I think these Marines of Venumar here are out of ammunition now. They're going to join the fray alongside the Warda. I'm not sure how well they're going to match up against Guardsmen of the Harp and some scouts of the tree with their maces, especially with the second unit here in close attendance. They're now out of ammo. Muffins is going to send them in. The Warda of Breathhill, I don't think are going to be able to brace and get their brace bonus. They'll be will help them with that that charge there. And the Warda are going to fairly swiftly be overwhelmed at this point. Marines of Vinyamar clashing here with the Guardsmen of the Harp. They're under some heavy, heavy fire. Now it's the turn of the Guardsmen of the Harp to get a little bit of revenge. Warda Breathiel going to countercharge there. Guardsmen of the Harp are going to take it on the chin. And the Scouts of the Tree will continue their advance forward. I don't really think that the Haladin have much left to give at this point. Meanwhile, over here, it looks like there's some action going on. Salamandrine Guard hanging out in the center. I've, of course, got my Wretches hidden over here. Don't think I've revealed them just yet, but I do have my Thralls of Angband as well, firing at them. And again, even if I can just take down, 1, 2, 3 models, it does kind of add up in the long run for these smaller units like the Salamandrine Guard. That being said, against Cantabrian Circle, Salamandrine Guard, who doubtlessly have an armor upgrade, it's probably a little bit of a waste of my ammunition. I can see what they're going after. So the catapult was brought over here. Whew, hard to be. A fun little known fact, those little fire arrows from the Salamanders are able to destroy siege weaponry. So Buzzard trying to make something happen with the catapult here, trying to pull them out of their hidey hole. He's coming under almost immediate fire from the Salamandrine Guard. And yeah, you can see them taking a pretty hefty bite out of a lot of these catapults. Some of them slowly but surely beginning to crack. And ooh, Salamander's trying to get a little bit closer here. I'm going to take my Thralls of Angband, unload into them. Both of the units, I think, going to give them a volley at close range. They're going to turn around, and they're going to immediately get shot from behind. They're actually going to take down a decent number of those Salamanders. Think about 3, 4, maybe 5. Reavers of Anfauglith coming out, and that's going to force them to pull back, hopefully to save the catapults. One of them will get destroyed in the retreat. And my Reavers will force the Salamanders to fall back. And they actually do take a decent amount of losses there, probably maybe 10 or so models, so obviously that's a nice little win for us. Sentries of Alcalonde in here as well. So, oh, yeah, Reavers of Anfauglith sensing an opportunity. Countercharge the Salamanders here and try and do what we can, and everyone's just going to kind of focus on the Salamanders here. And yeah, the Reavers are going to take some losses, but so will the Salamanders, and ultimately at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're after here. They're trying to take up position again and continue to harass the catapult, and we're just going to keep on shooting at them. Managed to kill about half or so of the units so far. I love this. Look at this little dance that these guys are doing here. I didn't even know that that was a thing. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Herdsman, Gondolin now moving in, and I think this is when I'll take... Oh, I might lose another catapult here in the retreat. Nope, I think I'm going to take some of my trolls here and maybe try and break those guys. We'll see what ends up happening. The Reavers end up dying there, and then we just kind of shoot these units to death. Herdsmen now out in the open. They're going to be pretty easy prey for a lot of the sentries here. And then over in the center, let's see what's going on. A little bit of a lull. There's a small fight here between Guardsmen of the Harp and the Marines of Vinyamar. Guardsmen, I think, lost about 25 or so of their number, and the Marines are being handily rebuffed by the remainder of that unit. Haladin still have a decent amount of their solid units left, but I gotta think that they're getting short on manpower here in the center for sure. Muffins hasn't really sustained a lot of losses. Most of that is going to be, my 200 or so Reavers that just got killed, and some skirmishers, and a couple of Gondolin infantry here and there. But ultimately, this has kind of gone in our favor for quite a lot of the game. Herdsman of Dorloman over here, 71, hanging out in the forest. I think I've got a second unit of Reavers here as well, but I'm not quite ready to play my hand. Although, of course, Wally, I'm sure, knows that I have some hidden units over here. Salamanders took a big beating. Oh no, another unit of Salamanders has come out of nowhere. And they are now going to destroy the remainder of that catapult. I'm going to see it, and I'm going to try and go after them with my Troll Guard. Push them out of there. I got my Iron-Shot Ravagers as well. I think we might manage to save some of that catapult. And now it's going to have an opportunity to maybe take some pot shots here at this very stationary Golfin army. See some more Marines of Vinyamar coming out of somewhere, probably from the center over near the bodyguard. and it would appear that they are setting up for an attack here. So let's see kind of how that goes. There's a little bit of movement over on this side as well. I believe the Easterlings are shifting forces around. And potentially the Paladin are getting ready for their last hurrah. I'm sure they want to try and reclaim the center here. More of the Ward of Brethil being brought to bear, but I'm just not sure it's worth it. This is... Meven's been kind of feeding his light infantry and some of his medium infantry into the meat grinder a little bit. That being said, he does have the best yet to come. There's still lots of Gondolin infantry and stuff like that that can be used to launch an attack on the center, potentially overwhelming Gondolin. We'll see. We'll see indeed. But I'm going to go ahead and fast forward here, and I will see you guys in just a few moments. And this is where things start to get really interesting. So the Paladin have shifted some of their best forces. Most of their remaining troops, I believe, have shifted over to the Easterling side. The Easterlings are advancing in force, screening their approach with some Warband of Lothland and some Fangs of the Faithless. Buzzard has been steadily moving back from his position here, just a little bit farther back. Again, delaying that first impact with the Easterling army, especially something he wants to do now that they've been reinforced by some pretty sturdy Paladin units over in the center here. It looks like Muffins is taking the fight to the Warda, and they're actually doing pretty well here against the Scouts of the Tree. The Scouts of the Tree are a little bit outnumbered, but now some of the remaining Scouts are going to come to their aid. And this is actually a forested area, so the Warda and the Scouts are both going to be getting bonuses here, but I believe the Warda end up getting more. Mardrot of Gondolin charging into the fray. The Scouts of the Tree are going to potentially find themselves quite swiftly overwhelmed. With that being said, the Warda are taking decent enough damage. Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch, in close attendance, they're going to go after those Mardrot, take down a few of those models, and over here, I believe, some more action. Yeah, President of Dor Loman, they're going to charge into my Thralls of Angband, and immediately come under fire from my second unit of Thralls who are quite close nearby. I'm going to try and pull back my Thralls of Angband. I'm beginning my advance here as well. You can see my my shock troops being brought forward here, Troll Guard, Spear Guard to defend them, Wretches, Skirmishers, all that stuff getting itself into position. And I think, yep, the addition of the Trolls now, that's going to send the Herdsmen running for the hills. They unfortunately don't have the fortitude of their Patriarch Húrin, who I'm sure would have soloed these Troll Guard with both hands tied behind his back and a blindfold on as well. But the Herdsmen of Dor Loman beating a hasty retreat. Looks like a little bit of reinforcements coming over to my end in the form of 3 units of Armors of the Hammer, also really nice. Cavalry, all that fun stuff is over here, and Valinor continuously pulling back under some pretty heavy pressure here from the Easterlings. Warband of Lothland and the 2 units of light cavalry from the Easterlings on a sort of deep strike here, trying to act as an envelopment force. They're going to be potentially very deadly if they manage to get in behind these units here while the other Easterling units pressure them from the front. That would certainly be a death sentence for Buzzard's army. Over here in the center, things have finally quieted down again. So much blood has been spilled over this tiny, tiny little pass. Looks like Gondolin units here being moved, Sentries of Hithlum getting themselves into position. But so far that front line hasn't moved. But it's going to be my turn to kind of jump into the action here. Halberdiers, all that fun stuff beginning to move forward. Let's pop on over to the Easterling side of things. We can see that there's quite a lot going on here. So we've got some salamanders, I believe, in behind here, question mark. Nope, it's Roatani. We do have some salamanders, I believe, over here. Yes, indeed. Tundra's Fox kind of bringing them forward, and they're going to be able to pressure the rear of some of these units, but my Thralls of Angband having a great time here. Firing into the Herdsmen, firing into the Marksmen of Baradithel, and they're just through sheer numbers, they're going to be able to inflict some pretty steady attrition on it to these Marksmen, and they're going to have to defend themselves, but honestly, shooting down a few of my Thralls doesn't really make a huge amount of difference to me. Volley after volley coming in here, claiming the lives of some of these Noldor. And those Marksmen are going to turn their attention to my Halberdiers. They're going to be taking some of those arrows to the face, but they have their armor upgrade with 9 armor it's not going to bother them too much. And that is a glorious, glorious sight there with the sunset in the background. My ordered ranks of heavily armored orcs sallying forth to take the fight to the enemy. Blazing of Barrett Eiffel now. It is going to be the turn of Fingolfin to begin to fall back. Marksman of Barrett Eiffel here just being drowned in a hail of arrows. I don't think they were upgraded. It doesn't look like they are based on the amount of damage that they're sustaining from my thralls. Now, they're a medium unit. I think they start with like 5 or 6 or something like that, maybe 6 armor, but you can actually upgrade them all the way to 10 with a couple of armor upgrades, making them true heavy infantry and heavy skirmishers. But it doesn't look like that's the case here, and they're going to take a lot of damage. That's a nice little win for us. So, my main line has moved up, approached the Fingolfin front lines, and looks like the Easterlings are kind of going for a bit of a full surround here. So Buzzard's been forced to draw back yet again, and the Easterlings are inexorably advancing towards him. So I brought my Warg Riders over. They're going to be able to take shots from the Croatoan Nomads, for example, right on the chin. The Warband advancing, pushing that front line forward, and yeah, things are gonna kick off here in a pretty glorious and grandiose style. Over on my side, I'm advancing towards that Fingolfin line, and this is where the big guns come out. So I saw an opportunity here to maybe get on top of those warriors of Vinyamar. My trolls were brought forth into the Ferdsmen. Now, I definitely want to apply a whole lot of pressure here, but a lot of my support units are kind of lagging behind, so I am going to be forced to pull out some of my Troll Guard. They're a little bit unruly beasts, and so not all of them are going to follow. But half, I'd say, of one of those units is right here. Reavers of Anfauglith, my reserve unit, are being brought forward. Looks like Wally Wolf is going to take this as an opportunity to maybe move forward, or perhaps that was a little bit of a miss micro. I think it probably was. Now they're going to be sort of caught out here by my Reavers, who are going to be able to charge into the rear of them, along with some Troll Guard. Might be enough to cause a bit of a rout here if we're lucky. I don't think we're going to be able to do it quick enough, though. Yep. Now the Armorer is collapsing in, the rest of my Troll Guard. The Armorers are, of course, fear-causing, so this is going to be very ugly for them indeed. We've got some Iron Shot Ravagers. They're going to get in there and do a whole lot of damage. I'm going to try and pull my Troll Guard out of there because I don't want them to take a full charge from the Herdsmen of Hithlum. Armorers of the Hammer are sparring with them. That's going to be an ugly fight for everybody involved. The Harumatar sort of being overwhelmed by just the massive application of force here. Let's go ahead and slow things down just a little bit. So, Knights of the Golden Flower here. So they are sparring with the Arqueni Findicano. This is the armor-piercing horse archer unit, and Wally Wolf's going to want to be a little bit careful here. My Iron Shot Ravagers are going to be able to get in there. And the Arqueni Findicano, this looks like a big miss micro. And it's kind of pinned between a rock and a hard place a little bit here. So the Ravagers are going to absolutely devastate this unit. He's going to have to pull out there. Be very careful how he does it, because of course there are some stakes right there, and the Arqueni Findicano are going to break off. Now, it's not going to be the last that we hear from them. They will reform and come back, but that's a pretty ugly loss there. Meanwhile, on the front lines, we're actually not winning the fight, which is, I was kind of hoping we would be, based on the huge amount of infantry and stuff we have. But the Bladesmen and the men of Hithlum are actually holding quite well. So we really need to get things going. So I'm going to send more and more of my infantry over on this sort of flanking movement, and we need to get into this pocket here and maybe try and shut down some of these missile units. Armors of the Hammer have done very well in pushing through, but we are getting a little bit bogged down. But we'll come back to this. Meanwhile, over here, Valinor doing their best to kind of delay the enemy's approach, just kind of falling back as far as he can. And now both of our armies are essentially fighting, back to back. Knights of Tirion, there's a second unit of them that has come forth, so we do have some decent heavy cavalry on the field. There's some Wolf Riders of Angband over this way, and now Gondolin is pulling out of here as well, and the rest of the army is going to follow suit. See some elements here managing to get into some of the centers of Alcalandre. Probably a little bit of miss micro there on Buzzard's part. Guardsmen of the Harp. It looks like there's a small rear guard that was left behind. This is a fairly chaotic retreat, but meanwhile over here, this is what's really important. So, Proto-Nomads and the Paladin Cavalry working very nicely together, managing to probably rout off a decent amount of shoal runners. And they haven't really taken a lot of attrition in the meanwhile. Maybe, 20 or so model shoal runners managing to get, find their footing again. But we're once again being forced to kind of fall back here. Meanwhile, over here, things have started to swing a little bit. Armors of the Hammer have managed to get in there. I've managed to bring all of my Troll Guard to bear. Ironshod Ravagers, and some Reavers pinning these spear units in place. And the Sons of Hurin have been brought forth to try and stem the tide, as it were. But meanwhile on the front lines, yeah, things aren't going super great for us. Maybe in the center here we're doing okay. I was forced to commit my Bulldogs, and they're kind of going toe-to-toe with a lot of these units. Halberdiers here beginning to move forward, but yeah, they're not having a good time. Ravagers kind of bouncing off that front line. Although at least over here, the Tormentors have managed to kind of break through what remains of the Paladin, probably due in large part to the losses that they suffered in the center there at the hands of Muffins. Marshal of the Heavenly Arch here, getting into more of the Mardrot. Armors of the Hammer, we're overwhelming the small Paladin contingent, and that is going to open up this Fingolfin flank here. More reserves being deployed. We've got more Gondolin units arriving on scene. Some Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch here, some Armorers, and some really important skirmish units. Got some Wolf Riders from Angband in the back here. Probably, yeah, trying to run a little bit of interference on these Paladin cavalry. Now, they are taking decent enough losses. There is still this very large calf presence in our back lines, and Buzzard is now falling back for what will be the final time Salamanders being brought forward to try and stabilize the situation, since we are managing to take away the initiative here from the Fingolfin army, and they are beginning to buckle under the pressure of this kind of joint assault here. Salamanders falling back. Marksmen of Barret Ithel looks like they're going to be joining the front lines. Next, the Golden Flower were brought forth, managing to get some decent rear charges here, which will help. We've really thinned out, especially here, and that's cause for concern, certainly. So I think I'm going to see that, and I'm going to take my Spear Guard. I'm going to send them forward fairly soon. Ooh, yeah, that nasty split shot fire there from the two units of Slingers in the back. Going to make these cavalry units think twice about sticking around. Going after the R20 Indicano, yep. Nice, juicy target there for those Slingers. I doubt they'll hang around for too long. Not too sure what those units are firing at. Looks like the Armors of the Hammer. They managed to do a decent amount of damage to them. Guardsmen of the Harp sort of picking up where they left off. And now these fear-causing units are going to be thrown into the rear of the Paladin General, and that will hopefully secure what remains of this wing. So this is sort of where we've managed to break through, overwhelming the Fingolfin host, the host of Hithlum, and now we've managed to get through on the other side as well. Troll Guard here, smashing into the rear, and this is just wide open. So the Sons of Hurin putting up a fight, quite appropriately slaughtering my Troll Guard, but there's infantry nearby to support them, and now they're going to be bogged down in a fight against the Orcs. And just like the story, they will be overwhelmed this way by sheer weight of numbers, and they're not going to be able to assist the rest of the lines. And now they're sort of isolated, surrounded by a sea of foes, and the High King and his bodyguard are going to be in some serious trouble over here. So now I've got my Spear Guard, I put them in the shield wall. We're going to try and break through this formation here if we can. We're going to muscle our way in, with the Troll Guard pressing them in from the rear, and they're losing combat. That is going to be enough to rout off a large number of these centers of Hithlum. Ironshod Ravagers here, going toe-to-toe with the Salamanders. And some Troll Guard in there as well. It's not going to be a fun fight for them. So, our 20 Indicano have been, they've been redeployed to the back. Marksmen of Barret Ithel here, certainly being a bit of a problem. And the Fingolfin forces have, I mean, they've still got a hand to play, especially with all those missile units. Now, here we're managing to overwhelm the Ivingmo Adantad, and they've basically lost elsewhere on the field here, so we're going to be able to just punch through and destroy them. But there is something pretty significant going on. Now, there's a lot of routing units here. We're going to have to be able to run as many of them down as possible. We need to take care of the skirmishers, of course, and yeah, just prevent Gondolin from regrouping because of what's going on over here. The Easterlings are just chewing up that light Valinor front line. Now, Buzzard's able to do a decent amount of damage here, mostly off the back of his mid-range skirmishers, and Muffins does have some support here in the form of the Marksman of the Heavenly Arch, redeploying a fresh unit here of the Armors of the Hammer, and I, of course, got some light infantry as well. The rest of the Angband have been held back for just such an occasion, and I've also got my Wolf Riders nearby as well. I don't know if they're seen. Darawarda are over here, some spoilers of Dork around here and all that kind of stuff. The catapult crew here of Hearthguard of Tyrion, they're sort of just like holding up this blob, which is nice. The rest of the Haladin army, sort of the cream of the crop, another unit of Darawarda, Skullgunner of Haleth, that kind of thing. They've made their appearance. Nice little rear charge here. I'm going to side through some of those Swear to Brother. And now I'm going to be redeploying as many of my troops as quickly as possible as I can. But of course there are still Mardrot hanging around here, a decent number of them, a couple units there. I'm going to try and get my Thralls in there, maybe delay them, just do something. Try and hold them up. Reavers of Enfabulith bearing down on the rear. Ironshot Ravagers here being sort of routed and then coming back and then routing and just trying to deal with what remains of the Fingolfin army here. I think we've managed to do that for the most part, except for, yep, some of them are still coming back. We need to make sure that they stay gone. Because if they get into the rear at the wrong time, it is going to be all over but the crying. Of course, there are still some dismounted Mardrot over here. Marksman of the Heavenly Arch being redeployed. And over on this side, it's kind of hard to say who's winning. It says that they're both losing, and there is some missile support from the Valinor Sentries of Alcalonde, so maybe that's going to be enough to swing this. Plus there is, of course, the Plaza Guardians, and that is going to be enough, I think, to swing this fight here. Guardsmen of the Harp moving in as reinforcements. Shoal Hunters of Alcalonde going toe-to-toe with the Warband. They do have maces, and they're going to be backed up by some of my mace units as well. So we'll see how the Warband end up doing there. Mariners of Alcalonde, sort of the last line of defense here for the Valinor army. Clan Guard have just been through hell and back at this point, and it's just a big, ugly fight as we come down to the end of this here. Marksman of the Heavenly Arch a little bit isolated, being attacked in the rear by some fear-causing some Wolfang with their armor piercing. They are not going to be long for this row at all. They are just surrounded and cut off from the rest of the army, so I don't think they're going to stick around and fight for too much longer. My halberds have managed to successfully redeploy here and form some semblance of a battle line, while in the back we try to sort of desperately fend off the Haladin cavalry and Easterling cavalry who have joined forces to continuously harass our rear. So it's not quite done yet. Mardrot's going to try and get a charge into the front, but they're not armor-piercing with those spears. They are just spear cav. Pardon me. So they're not going to do a whole lot to this marksman, and Valinor is going to be able to get in there. And this Mardrot are definitely not going to be long for this world. We see them fall very, very quickly there from that rear charge from the Valinor cavalry. Meven's going to pull out there, having lost over half of his remaining forces. Spoilers of Dork Aranthier coming in at a very ugly time. You can see some breaking begin to take place. As I mentioned earlier, orcs do not like bad unexpected things happening to them, especially once they get tired. That's when things can really start to get ugly. Warband of Lothland pushing in. Now the Spoilers of Dork Aranthier here have flown perhaps a little bit too close to the sun. Dual-pronged assault here from the Knights of Tyrion and the Wolf Riders. Going to pincer those Croatani nomads. That should be enough to send them packing, at least for the time being, and stop them from, say, running down my wretches. So these wretches will eventually reform. We'll be able to throw them back into the fray. And those Croatani are going to take some really ugly losses quite quickly there at the hands of our heavy cav. Spoilers of Dork Aranthier here, just sort of being ignored by the Knights of Tyrion, who are instead going for a rear charge against this much healthier unit. Tundra is going to see it, and I think Buzz is going to bait the charge and manage to get away unscathed. And now he's in the back here. It says that their forces are winning, but to be perfectly honest, the Bulldogs against the Sons of Wolfang, they're being backed up with some chaff. And we should have this, but there's still a lot to go here. Marksman having the Arch managing to somehow get behind the Warband of Lockland. I don't know, it's been chaos. I have no idea what's happening anymore. Classic Guardians pushing downhill, and this is probably going to be the end of this wing of the red team's army. But look at those percentages, still pretty damn close. About a 9% or so difference. Spoilers of Dork Aranthir here being countercharged by the Marksmen of Heavily Arched, and this is just why I love them. I love them so much because look, like they're playing an important role in like at least 2 different potentially game-changing fights. Because my troops, if these fear-causing units manage to get a good charge into the rear of them, it's all over the climb. Tormentors of the Iron Crown here, bearing down the multiple mains of this army, along with the Armorers and the Bulldogs of Angband, of course, being there as well. Sons of Wolfang, not going to have a good time here. And now it looks like perhaps some of the Slingers somewhere. Like a tiny number of them. Nope, 55. Not a tiny number at all. Kinsmen of Ingwe pushing down with the Plaza Guards, and that's going to be it. Basically, game over here for these units. Nice little cheeky rear charge there from Tundra's Fox with the Salamanders. Definitely getting some decent value off from there. Down goes the Fingolfin General, and that should be enough to put the nail in the coffin for at least what remains of the Fingolfin army, which I believe there was some remaining here, some Aidimo Adantad, which is holding up some very valuable reinforcements. So Troll Guard here, Ravagers, Spear Guard, all that stuff. Some Armorers of the Hammer as well. Their very presence with the fear can potentially be engagement winning. So we're finally going to break through there. We're going to be able to bear down with everything that we've got. A little bit of breaking here from the Warband of Lothland, and now the rest of the Valinor army has been unleashed. I think there's still something going on over here, some Halberdiers. Yeah, the Ambaroni Honor Guard definitely proving their worth here, holding up yet more of these Valinor troops from rejoining the main fight. Fangs of the Faithless going toe-to-toe with the Might of the Blessed Realm, and we'll see how that works out for them. Probably pretty well with the presence of all these other units. Mardrod of Malduin now behind Salamanderine Guard. Yeah, the red team is definitely not going quietly into that good night. You can see the Halberdiers being brought forth to prevent the Shoal Hunters from being able to get a solid firing solution, which is going to basically end any resistance here. But the Plaza Guardians of Valinor have managed to make it in. And I think we can see which way this is going. We're starting to see breaking there. Skaldmare still hanging around. I got my Wolf Riders pursuing the Salamanders, just not letting them kind of do their thing, which is really the important part here. And they're going to go after the Knights of Tyrion. Nice little rear charge here. Oh, nope, not quite a rear charge. Buzz is going to see it at the last minute. He's going to turn around and actually run away. He's probably got bigger fish to fry here, of course. Nice little cheeky charge against the Skaldmare while they get attacked from the rear by multiple different units here. And the Easterling army is, and the red team army generally is basically done for. 95 to 82, very, very bloody. Took a long time to get to that point, but we really did kind of fight everywhere, didn't we? There goes the Haladin General, one of the last to fall. But yeah, if you look at it, we really did fight everywhere. There's, fights in the back here where our back lines were. This huge line battle that took place between both sides. Buzz was basically in a fighting retreat all the way across the line here. He pushed into the forest. And then, of course, the center was just an absolute bloodbath. So, a pretty cool tournament game. It did take us a long time to get to the action. But lucky for you, editing is a thing. I can make cuts so you don't have to suffer through a 4-hour game the way that I did. So, yeah, really well played to our opponents there. We're going to go ahead and kind of fast forward through these final moments. Skaldmare of Halath fighting the Rainbow Army. Purple, blue, red, black, white, all bearing down on them simultaneously. They're going to put up a decent enough fight. Salamander and Guard fighting by their side. But ultimately, it is not going to change too much. They will manage to get an extra percentage point there, 97 to 83%. Plaza Guardians of Valimar as well joining the fray. Whew, pardon me.
Army is tiring.
And that is going to do for our first game of this of the first round. And keep it up to 1.5 salamanders. Not going to be long for this world. Skullmare fighting hard. Maybe look at that extra percentage points. Maybe it'll all be worth it. Not quite. Not quite. Now, this could very well have been a completely different fight if there were more Haladin units over here to kind of hold us up. Because the way it ended up playing out was that we had broken through both flanks of the Fingolfin army at the same time, and then there was just no reserves because there was nothing left. What remained of most of the Haladin had gone with the Easterling army in an attempt to break Buzzard. And if Buzzard had kind of accepted that challenge, they would have been able to break through him quite handily and quite easily with minimal casualties, and then I think ultimately we would have ended up losing that game. So, combination of things. The success that Muffins had against Meven in the center was a big part of that, and Buzzard's tactical retreat basically were two of the things that helped win that game. Yeah, really fun game. Well played to my team, well played to my opponents, and yeah, that's going to be game 1 of round 1, and I will see you guys in the next video. Before we go, we'll take a look here, see what's kind of done the damage. Halberdiers, of course, being in the thick of things. Ravagers, a lot of my flanking units, of course, did very well. Wolf Riders did, pretty well for the Wolf Riders, 68, 70 kills, not bad. Bulldogs did well, Thralls did well, Troll Guard did pretty well. Yeah, not really disappointed with the performance of anything except for maybe 1 or 2 units of Reapers, but we ended up using them for important tactical things, so the numbers don't really matter as much. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as Jmonster. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.